What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we return with Jamison of Arrival of Autumn. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for coming back on the show, man.
So great to be back, dude. Great to see you again. Great to chat again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's so great to be able to talk with you. I think I interviewed you guys like 3 or 4 times on the Harbinger cycle. So it's good to be able to talk with you now because this new album, Kingdom Undone, is absolutely critical. Is absolutely kick ass. I call it Kingdom Undone outdoes your previous one. So that's my review of it.
Awesome.
So.
All right. That's great to hear.
Yeah. For people who haven't heard the full length album yet, though, do you feel that the first singles that we have, Ghosts and Scars, are a good representation of this whole record? Or is that just the tip of the iceberg of what's to come?
It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's some vibes on the record that we haven't really got to yet. And that's on purpose. Like we definitely, we feel the two singles that we've released are some of the strongest songs on the record, which is why we're showcasing them. But we've got some tricks up our sleeve on this one for sure.
Was there sort of a preconceived vision of this album? Was it sort of like picking up where you left off after Harbinger, or was it meant to kind of like signify like a new beginning for Arrival of Autumn?
We wanted to pick up where we left off, but we also wanted to try some new things. And we kind of felt like it needed a darker direction. So that's where we took it.
By the way, did you pick up the Yankees hat on your last trip to New York?
When we were there with In Flames, I did. Yeah. Yeah, at the Lid store on Times Square.
That's awesome. Have you aggravated like a couple Blue Jays fans up there or something like that?
Everyone gets confused, and you know what? Honestly, I'm not even a fan of the Yankees, or like I barely watch sports. I just think it's awesome to represent the city, and I think it looks good.
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome. And what's funny is like most of the people I know like in the scene here are diehard Mets fans. So I love this video just to totally troll all of them. I think it's awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, if you wore that at the show with Heathen, nice work. You are officially hardcore right now.
You know, I probably did. It was pretty cold in Brooklyn that day.
Yeah, no, it was freezing. But when it comes to like the making of any song or any album, has it ever began with a preconceived vision in a way, or is your songwriting process very improvisational and very sort of like experimental?
It starts as improvisational, and then we kind of get an idea of where we're going, and then we zone in on aspects of what we like about the new demos that we've come up with, and then we kind of focus in on those tones and those vibes. And like there was no meeting about concept or anything before we had the album fully demoed, but as we were writing, it just kind of went in that direction where we liked certain things about certain demos, so we did more of that and went in kind of that direction, which was a pretty dark, heavy direction.
With Kingdom of Done, you also mentioned like concept and stuff. Is Kingdom of Done meant to sort of be like a concept album in a way? Are you expressing like does every song kind of like lead up into one thing when we get from Scars to Hollowed in a way, or was every song meant to sort of have its own individual meaning?
Every song has its own individual meaning for sure, but it's all sort of in the same subject matter of like people who have committed atrocities, people who are corrupt and run the world, people who like Scars is just about being true to yourself. So it's on like a personal level, being real, and then we point the finger at organized religion, we point the finger at government control, we point the finger at like how we're all kind of under the boot of oligarchs, stuff like that. Like, so it's all about kind of how our society is kind of heading in a direction where it might not last much longer. And of course we exaggerate, but there's a lot of shit in the world that we like to write about. So it's kind of funny. Like Harbinger was released in 2019, and of course that was all about warnings and omens and like it was like basically, yeah, like the harbinger of death. And then all of a sudden the world fell apart and we were like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Let's keep going with that theme. The world's falling apart. Let's talk about it.
I will say that the lyrics behind Harbinger sort of aged like fine wine, I must say, and I feel like Kingdom Undone is almost being like, "See, I told you so."
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, because like I was wondering in a way, because I do see that like now it makes sense. Like my predictions were true. I did see that sort of like fu to oligarch attitude behind it in a way, and standing up against those sort of atrocities. But was the pandemic kind of like the reason you sort of like was everything that happened in the last couple of years kind of been sort of like the what fostered everything behind this, or was this something that you've kind of always wanted to address over the years? Like it was inevitable that you would address this concept to begin with.
It was inevitable, I think, but being stuck at home, working day jobs, not knowing if we were going to be able to live our dream, definitely fueled it and helped really stoke the lyrical content and get us really worked up and shaped what the album became.
Yeah, because and when you mentioned, I've talked to you before. Like I've definitely asked you if you've like needed to hear music before you've come up with lyrics and whatnot. But like depending on the lyrical subject matter, does it resonate with you on a different level if you're singing about like something very external versus something more personal?
Yeah, definitely. There's even songs on our last record where I'm 5-6 years disconnected from who I was when I wrote those songs, and I don't have as much fire behind me when I'm on stage doing them. I still know why I wrote them. I still believe in the message behind them, but it's kind of funny how as you age, you change, and like in 5 years, I might not feel the same about this record, but it needed to come out of me in order for me to get to move past the way I was feeling at the time that I wrote it.
Well, you led me perfectly into a question I was planning to ask you actually, because I've always said that art is life, and when you bring it into the world, it could grow, it could develop, it could also eventually die in a way. So, do you feel like the meaning of your lyrics could evolve with you over time as you evolve as an artist, and maybe your attachment to them change over time, or do you prefer if every song that you make is more or less a snapshot of who you are at that particular time?
It's more or less a snapshot, but yeah, I mean, like, I leave a lot of my lyrics up to interpretation to the listener, and so yeah, definitely as I grow, I think some of the meanings will change. I might even be like, I wrote that, but I didn't mean to mean it like that, but now I think about it like that. So yeah, definitely, like, as a and like same with records that I loved growing up. When I go back and listen to them, I'm like, damn, that is hitting completely different with me right now in this stage of my life. So I think art definitely has a tendency to hit not only individuals differently, but the same people differently in different times of their lives. And yeah, that goes for the stuff that I create as well.
Yeah. And especially too, like being that you mentioned the open to interpretation aspect of it. If could somebody else's interpretation of it, even if it's not remotely anything aligned with what you were trying to express with it, but do you think that other people's interpretation of the music can add another layer of context or add another layer of meaning to it as well?
Yeah, definitely. I get some feedback, now and then from fans about my lyrics, and sometimes it's they'll bring stuff up in a way that I didn't think about. So yeah, definitely, yeah.
And because you address, subject matters that are not easy to address, whether it's your own personal demons or your own external aspects. Like I remember listening to songs such as "End of Existence" or or the endless or symbolic, for example, like the horror as well. Like, I mean, those songs really hit heavy on an emotional level. But does that maybe make, when you have to address stuff that is very anger inducing or that does bring out the darkness, you know, it's obviously cathartic to create art about that, but can that also maybe make the songwriting process just as deteriorating as well?
Yeah, it's tough. On the new record, I get into a lot of shit that happened in the last few years. A lot of stuff that was really personally devastating, and I lay it out there because I mean, a lot of people don't talk about these things, like growing up, being raised a certain way, and then becoming your own person can be a very devastating experience because your whole world changes and it's out of your hands because you can't force yourself to believe something when you don't, and people don't really talk about that. So I think it's hard to put on paper, but it's very important to me to do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, and when you have to revisit those songs, though, do you almost kind of have to put yourself in that same sort of mindset as you were when you were writing it in a way? Because nobody likes to feel that negative emotion. Like, while it's great that we all have the ability to create art about that negativity, you know, that negative energy is not something we want to exactly feel in a way. So when you have to bring it to a live presence and replicate it in a way, do you almost have to bring back that negative emotion in a way?
I try not to. I like to keep the reason why I sing what I sing in the back of my mind so that so I can bring the emotion I need to on stage. But I like to think of it more as like a shared experience with the audience where if they relate to it, we can all have an experience together during the performance, during the show, and relate to something on a level that people don't really relate to every day. Like you can't just find that when you're chatting with people at the bar, like so. Yeah, you got to bring the intensity. You got to bring that level of emotion that got you to the place where you wanted to put that, on paper and into the song. But it doesn't bring me down at all to do that on stage. It's a more of a liberating experience.
But you know, sometimes you are working on a song for days or weeks, months, maybe even years. So do you find it like when you're working on something for a long period of time, it makes it a little bit more difficult to sort of hold on to the emotion that initially sparked the idea?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think there's like I even look at some of the songs that I've written where I start them and then finish them months later, and I can, the listener might not know, but I can tell like the part that I finished the song on kind of, there's like a tone shift almost, like, oh, I'm feeling differently about this topic months later, and now the second verse or the midsection or whatever kind of like expresses a bit of a different emotion than the rest of the song as a whole, which I think is, goes back to the interpretation of lyrics, like I leave a lot of stuff open to interpretation. But yeah, definitely, like you kind of have to remember why you're writing what you're writing, and try and match that same emotion when you revisit a song months down the road, for sure.
Yeah, and that sounds really, really hard because, like, almost kind of like an idea. Like they always say, inspiration strikes at the most inconvenient of times. So,
Yeah.
like, you almost it almost seems like with the making of any song, it's always capturing lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, definitely. There's a song on the new record, Hell Comes Home,
I love
that
that
I
song.
just couldn't come up with anything for months and months and months. And then I wrote it the day we tracked it. I was like, okay, I had, something devastating happen. And I was like, I hadn't put it to paper yet. And then I was like, okay, that's the song that I'm going to write this about. And yeah, it just happened like lightning in a bottle. Just went upstairs for like an hour and a half because we were recording at my house. So the studio was down here. They were working on guitars or whatever. I go upstairs, hour and a half later, I come back down. I'm like, Mark, I got it. Let's track this thing. And and away we went.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because this is like a debate I like to have with artists. Or not really so much a debate, but like I get different answers on it. Is inspiration, whether it will be for lyrics or vocal melodies or just any means of creation, is inspiration really something that could be sought out? Can you really look for inspiration, or is that just something that has to strike you in a way?
It something that you constantly have to be on the lookout for, I think, because you might feel inspired by something one day and then the next day feel nothing about it. So the things that keep pushing you in the back of your mind are the ideas that, for myself, I know are the ones that I have to eventually put to paper and write about.
And I also need to bring this up because kind of going deeper into the Arrival of Autumn catalog, because next year in 2024 is going to be 10 years of the debut, Shadows, in a way.
Yes, it is.
So, not to make anybody feel old, I always unintentionally make age people a lot when
Crazy.
I mention that. So, A, can there be a celebration of that down the road if that didn't just come into your mind now as I brought it up? But and kind of going back down a little bit, what was the sort of mindset behind the debut in a way? Because they say you have your whole life to make your first record. So I'd imagine like the creation of Harbinger when I first spoke to you was very different than what it was for Shadows.
Yeah, Shadows was like, looking back, it was more like a demo that I feel like if we'd brought it to a producer could have been something that we would now still be really proud of. And I mean, like, it's great that we have that in our history, but like, we don't promote that record. We don't like include it as one of our albums. It's more of like a demo that we did 10 years ago. So like the creation of Harbinger kind of became our experience of crafting a proper first album, and Shadows was the work that we had to do to get us to the songwriting level we needed to be at to make Harbinger. But yeah, we are actually planning on, we had an idea. This is very, like, we haven't even had a proper meeting about whether we're going to do this, but we wanted to take our top, 4 or 5 songs from Shadows and re-record them and put out like a Shadows 10th anniversary EP almost kind of project.
Yeah,
So we might do that soon.
okay, because I do want to say, like, I do think that those are some very underrated songs. It wouldn't hurt to bring out some deep cuts from that on the live set. Because granted, Harbinger was the first time like I heard of you guys, but like after being into that album, I did go back to kind of like explore it a little bit. And I think like a track like Labyrinth or Selfish Sanity, for example, is really underrated, and I definitely think it would be great to revisit. And I love a title track like There's No Angels Here as well. That is just an amazing song title.
Nice. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, we had a lot of good times making that record, and we toured it for, I guess, I don't know, 2 or 3 years after it came out before we kind of got into Harbinger mode. And we've played, I think we played Like Fire off of Shadows at one of our hometown shows after we released Harbinger. That was the last time we've ever played anything off of Shadows. It would be kind of fun to bring back some of those deep cuts.
I hope maybe I helped make you want to do it more, because I definitely need to hear that live.
Yeah, you might have. I'm gonna have to think about the possibility of that now.
Yeah, as soon as we're done with the interview, you're hitting up those you're hitting up your bandmates.
Yeah.
And speaking of bandmates, this is another question, because every time I ask somebody how the making of a record was, and they say, we all collectively came together, it was all such a mutual agreement. I don't really believe it all the time, because if you're in a band with 5 guys or whatever, you're making 12 or so songs, there's going to be some disagreement, and there's going to be people in different headspaces, especially because, you all have your own instrument. You're going to be approaching things from either a melodic or rhythmic sort of or lyrical standpoint in a way. So does everybody really have to be in the same frame of mind when writing music together in a way, or could people feeling a little bit differently actually help enhance the songwriting process?
Yeah, I think people feeling differently helps enhance, because sometimes trying something a different way, if a member doesn't like a part of a song and says, "Hey, can you try something else?" Sometimes that idea beats the first one. So you need to have someone always kind of checking uh, to make sure that you're bringing the best possible effort to each song. And having a producer in the room is definitely usually that guy. Like Mark Lewis definitely helped push us to that next level. It kind of became our sixth member while we were making the record, and had a lot of great input. But during the demo sessions as well, we had times where we had disagreements about how a song was developing, and made us, uh, get a little bit more creative with it, and come to a mutual conclusion.
Yeah,
So
because
yeah, definitely, like yeah, no, mutual headspace, like that's that's probably, you're probably right. That's a bullshit a take. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, five bandmates all feeling the same way and all writing the same way with different instruments. That's a rare situation right there.
Yeah, totally. Usually, like, if that's the case, someone's bottling up some shit that they didn't say in the writer's room.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But
Yeah.
because you channel so much emotion into your lyrics and into the music as well, like, I mean, there is a ton of emotion in it. So like, do you maybe have to do the bandmates kind of have to like put themselves in your shoes a little bit to maybe feel the same way? Because like, part of me also wonders if you write a song that's very melancholy, for example, but two of the bandmates are having a great time and are all feeling excellent during that writing session. I mean, that's gotta kind of I don't know if hinder is the right word, but like it's gotta maybe be an obstacle in a way, right?
No, because I think, usually, what they're what they're feeling and what they're reflecting is more of the music side of things. They, for the most part, let me do whatever I want lyrically, unless I come out with a really corny line. Then someone will be like, "Dude, come on, let's revisit that." But no, like, if they're feeling positive vibes about a song that makes me feel sad, I take that as a positive reaction all the way around, because even if I'm addressing something negative in a song, I want people to enjoy the song in a way that makes them happy. So
Yeah.
I take that all as a positive experience. Yeah.
Or you could be like Amigo the Devil. I don't know if you've ever seen him live, but like when he's playing an acoustic song, he has people do a circle pit, but asks them to like be very like down and slow or whatever.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Just sort of make people feel the same vibe he does. So maybe you could do something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I should check that out.
Definitely. It was at Sonic Temple Fest when he did that. If there's any footage of that anywhere.
Okay, sick.
Yep. And I have a few more questions for you. You have many different usages of your voice too, which I find so astonishing about just you as a frontman in general. Like you almost kind of have. I don't like to genre label you, especially because you have so many different elements. But if we're gonna just for to sake of not making this question an eternity long, having that sort of metalcore sort of style in a way, I consider you to almost be like the Mike Patton of metalcore with your use.
Ah, shit.
So like having different usages of your voice, does that express different elements as well? Like do you almost look at your lyrics being like, this part needs to be screamed, this part needs to be sang, etc.?
Yeah, for the most part, for sure. And then there's times where I just want to try a new technique that I haven't recorded before. Like I do stuff on this record I didn't get around to on Harbinger, and just to, and we'll also try in the studio different approaches and then pick whichever one fits the vibe the best as well. So yeah, you gotta push yourself, gotta try things a couple different ways to know which is the right way. And yeah, thanks, man. I love being able to express myself in a bunch of different ways, and I feel like I captured a lot of pretty crushing styles on the new record.
Absolutely, 100%. That's an understatement right there. So
Awesome.
Yeah. But is there like because when I especially when I watched you play live, because now I've seen you guys play was it twice or three times? I can't remember. Soulfly was definitely one. And then the In Flames Red tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sadly with the In Flames one, I only was able to catch like the last song because I interviewed you that day, had to go to Brooklyn, and then came right back in the nick of time. But,
That's right. That's right.
Yep, to interview Typo. But is there like an art do you almost have to practice stage presence or crowd interaction as much as like the song itself in a way, or is that just something that comes naturally as you're playing more and more and more?
Yeah, like before we went on tour, we rehearse as if it's a live show. So in between songs, when we had our breaks, I was addressing just the room as if it were the crowd, and I kind of came up with a rhythm. Basically, is what you have to be ready for, and you want to have your talking points. Make sure that we promoted the new record and stuff. And then once we were on tour, I knew my rhythm, and I kind of improvised night by night, but I kept it more or less the same. So yeah, you definitely want to know what you're going to say before you're standing there in front of a room full of people going, oh shit. Because as as easy it is for me to scream in front of a room full of people, it's a lot harder to just talk to them and,
100%.
and try and keep them engaged in between songs.
Yeah. I won't mention names obviously, but I've seen bands where the singer just sings his ass off, knows how to just kill it when he's in the song, but when the song isn't playing, it's like so awkward. Like
yeah, you can't have that. Yeah. It's definitely a skill you have to work on. Yeah,
definitely. And there's no shame in practicing it in the mirror or in front of dolls or something like that.
Yeah, I get all my like Beanie Babies on my bed and I just perform to them. And...
Oh, really?
No, just joking.
Sure. Right.
Dang.
Yep. And I spoke with you about playing with a variety of different bands too, because one minute it was with Soulfly and then Red It In Flames, but then you just did a tour with Heathen, which kind of has a different sort of fan base as well. But
yeah,
I've also seen you play at a variety of different venues as well. Like Le Poussin Rouge, it's a small, intimate venue, but it is like fairly big in a way, where like I just saw Vader play there recently. But you played at the Kingsland recently, which is like there's just as many people on the stage as there are off the stage in a way. And then you played at Sony
Right.
Hall, which is a big venue with a barricade and everything. So would you say it's a different Arrival of Autumn experience too, not just depending on the bill that you're on, but the venue as well?
We try and bring a pretty equal caliber of intensity and of like we want people to have a great time no matter if we're in front of 5 people or 500 people. So like it's definitely for me like Sony Hall is a gorgeous venue. You're in the heart of New York, right off Times Square. The whole day is kind of like an out-of-body experience for a kid from the northern prairies. I was like just like pinching myself all day, and that energy definitely peaks when you're on stage doing the thing. But no, like rolling into Kingsland, I was like, man, I wish we were in Manhattan. But then, people fill the room. It's time to go, and I was like, oh shit, there's people, there's a good energy. Let's bring it, and that's what we did. So, I mean, as a tourist, because when I'm on tour, I'm a freaking nerd.
Loving Times Square, you sounded like loving Times Square is you wear that Yankee hat that you did come. You might as well wear the I Heart New York shirt at that point, because everybody who lives in New York City avoids it at all costs. But
totally, we were hanging out with the old singer of oh man, Rings of Saturn and his wife, and I come in with a bag from the M&M store, and she's like, oh, you hit the M&M store, did you? I was like, yeah, I know, I'm a fucking tourist. I love it. So as a tourist, I prefer to play where I'm close to stuff that I can, just take a quick walk around and see. But as a performer, anytime, any place, anywhere, let's go.
All right, yeah, we'll get you a gig in front of the Statue of Liberty just to bring it all home.
That'd be incredible.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time, and most of all, thank you for another amazing album. Is there just anything else with Arrival of Autumn that you'd like to plug with the release of Kingdom Undone, if you're allowed to say it this time, of course?
Yeah, I mean, we got 2 singles out now, Scars and Ghosts. We got music videos out. Check them out. Stream us on Spotify. The record comes out May 26th, and look out for more tour dates soon.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. Arrival of Autumn, Kingdom Undone, out via Nuclear Blast, May 26th. Be sure to pick that up. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.